What's up, family? Welcome to Positive Power XXI, J. Royce Films. I'm Jerry Royce Live, and you're watching The Red Room with Shay Samuels, right here on Music Vision Television. That's right, MVTV-21.com. It's going to be awesome, y'all. So please share this file. It's going to be awesome. You know what's going to be? It's going to be lit.
Welcome to another episode of The Red Room. I'm your host, Shay Samuels, and I'm excited to be here with you today for another episode. Listen, I always tell you guys to invite a friend who knows a friend who knows a friend, and maybe two cousins. And I encourage you to get your pen, your paper, get everything you need out so that you can be a lot better of a person and more of a better you when this episode is over. We want to give a great big shout out to our underwriters, those who work behind the scenes endlessly to keep these shows going. And we want to make sure that you understand that we love you. And without you, the show may not even be possible. So shout out to the underwriters. So what are we going to be talking about today? I told you to get your pen, your paper, get everything out. Hopefully you have some friends, popcorn, soda, and all that together, because we want you again to be blessed. Today, we're going to talk about domestic violence. Listen, it is a topic that I think goes under the water a lot of times because so many people are afraid to talk about it. So many people are afraid to bring it up. And so many people are afraid that if they start to identify with it, either they will have to leave the person that they're with, or they may get in some sort of trouble with the person because they're already going through that domestic violence. And sometimes as men and women, we don't realize that we're in a domestic violence type of relationship. We don't realize it because we're so numb to it. But I want to tell you today, the coach in me is going to bring out some things that may allow you to stay in that situation, maybe not even identify with that situation. And even in this show, I'm going to share some things with you that most people don't even know about me and why this conversation is so important to have. Especially as a teenager, there's so many people going through a domestic violence relationship, and there's nobody out there who knows about it. So even as a parent, I want to encourage you today in this episode to know how to understand it. Back in the day, I can tell you that when I was growing up, a lot of my family members, they were in those type of relationships. And when you grow up, you think those type of relationships are the way to go. I've seen my mom in them. I've seen my aunts and uncles in them. And I've even seen my grandparents. And when you grow up, you think that's just the normal. But I'm here to encourage you today that there's a such thing as PTSD. And when you deal with PTSD, you don't realize that that's exactly what it is. When we hear the terminology post-traumatic stress disorder, we automatically think Army, Navy. We automatically think somebody had to go into war in order for this to happen. I'm going to tell you that that's what domestic violence is. It's war. Just because it's not you putting a uniform on, going out to battle with a gun, does not mean that you are not going to suffer trauma. That's going to be another episode. So I'm going to stick to the domestic violence because I want you to be encouraged in it. First, let me share my story. As a young mother, I share it all the time, but there are bits and pieces of these stories that you guys need to hear because as a young mother, my mom did not realize that I was actually going through domestic violence. When I was pregnant, my kid's father at the time, when I was trying to leave him, did not allow that to happen. And so I had encountered my first domestic situation at the age of 16 years old. I was put in the hospital, and after 2 weeks of having a black eye and hickeys all in my head, I was afraid to tell my mom for years prior to that I was in this situation. I would be afraid to tell her because I didn't want her to say anything to him, and I was afraid to leave him because I didn't want him to continue to do it. But I remembered back when my mom was going through the situation, to me, it seemed as if this was a regular situation. Although it hurt me on the inside and out. And as a teenager going to school with black eyes, how do you explain to your teacher at the time that this is what's going on? And then to add to it, I was a 16-year-old mother. I was pregnant, and I didn't want to be another bit of a statistic because I was already one by being pregnant, but I didn't want to be another statistic with my daughter not being raised by her father. And so a lot of times we don't understand that staying in the relationship is worse than coming out of it. So eventually I stayed in the relationship, but as I was coming out of the relationship, it got worse. I had to end up as a young mother taking my items out of the house one by one. And I'm sharing this with you today because someone is thinking about the way of escape. I had to take my items out of the house one by one so that it didn't look like I moved out all at one time. So I would come home from school, go in the house, I would take clothes, come in from school, go in the house, take books, go into school, come back, come from school, go in the house and take baby clothes until one day I was through. I'm not going to go all the way into the story, but I need you to understand this, that someone in your family or you're going through this right now. And I need to tell you that if you stay, it will not end well. And if you go, you may reap a consequence for it for a second, but I'm going to tell you, once I was out, I was out. So I want you to be encouraged today. If you're watching this, domestic violence is real. And when you think it's the outside or the exterior that most people see of you that's hurting, but it's the inside that's traumatized even more. Because after that, you'll have to be able to work and to identify with another relationship that you will never be able to tap into because of what we call post-traumatic stress disorder. So how do I identify, outside of the fact that I just told you what it looks like, how do I identify, like my mother didn't with me, how do you identify my child might be going through this? Are they staying away from you for a long time? When they call, are they very short? Do you see marks on them that aren't typical? And are they saying, oh, I just bumped into the door. Oh, the baby hit me with something. Oh, I fell and this is it. And I know that this is typical and you think, well, this is kind of what happens to people, but it could be the smallest bruise on an arm that you have to take note of. So when they do come around you, I encourage you to do this. Look them over. Look them over. When you look them over, what do you see? I remember going into my mom's house as a young lady, and I ran upstairs once and I just started crying because I ended up blaming her for me being in this situation. I didn't know how to tell her that I was actually going through this type of relationship, all because I didn't want to get hurt any more than I had already been. So they may want to talk to you. Your child may want to talk to you. And unfortunately, they may not want you to know that they're going through it. So have the conversation. Have the conversation. For adults who are in domestic violence relationships, you may be going through an abusive relationship. What I didn't learn growing up is that there's a such thing as emotional abuse, and there's a such thing as mental abuse. We always talk about the physical, but we don't talk about the emotional, and we don't talk about the mental. I have encountered in my last couple of years, the last two that I explained to you, emotional and mental abuse. I'm going to ask you, which one do you think would be the most abusive of all? Like, you might say, okay, well, physical abuse is that, but what about the emotional? What about the mental? I'm going to leave that up to you. But I want to encourage you to identify with emotional, mental, and verbal abuse. Growing up, we've always heard about the physical, so I'm going to share with you today those three. Emotional abuse is any situation that you have, especially with women and in men, but more from men to women. Nowadays, you know what? Women also have emotional, we're aggressive as women. I'm just going to say that we're aggressive as women. As women, you know, we're taking care of the kids, we're taking care of work, we're the breadwinners. And so when we have men in the house, we're not thinking about, I have to be submissive to that person. We're thinking, because I'm doing everything, I'm the person that they need to be submitted to. And so that causes a bit of aggressive behavior. So what it causes you to do as a woman is you start coming in and you start degrading the man. You're not working. You're not enough for me. You're not a great dad. You're not making enough money. I need to have this. You can't do it. What happened to you? You used to have that six pack. Now you got a keg. I don't understand why you do this way. I don't like the way you touch me. I don't like the way you look at me. I don't like the way you speak to me. And that's what the man hears. That is what you call emotional abuse. And women, I'm speaking to us today because we are a new age group of women. And we're women who go out and we work hard and we want to get credit for the things that we do. But we don't realize that our mouths can be an emotional mess. And so when we talk to our children and when we talk to our men, well, let me go back. When we talk to the man, if you have a son, that's what the son is picking up on. And that's what the son is going to expect a woman to talk like. So now you have a son who has a woman who's talking to him the way you talk to the father. Do you see that cycle? Do you see how that cycle works? And that's what causes post-traumatic stress disorder. If we don't hone in on how impactful being in a healthy relationship can be, but how dysfunctional things can be being in a dysfunctional relationship, it's really I don't want to say a gift that keeps giving, it's a curse that keeps going. So the mother is having to do more because the dad is not doing more. The mother talks to the dad a certain way. The son or the daughter picks up on it. In either direction they go, the daughter's going to talk to the husband the way the mother is, and the son's going to accept from his wife what the mother gave to the dad. Do you get what I'm saying? So we have to understand that emotional abuse exists, but we can stop it today. So I want you to take that note. Ask yourself, am I the abuser or am I being abused? Now, some people might have said, I don't even know. I didn't even realize that there's a such thing as emotional abuse. Or if you've heard it, has it been broken down that way? Emotional abuse can also cause PTSD. Let me tell you, I read something a long time ago regarding slavery. And I realized when I was studying PTSD, I was studying social. I'm talking about not physical, not emotional, not mental or verbal, social PTSD. And what that was, when back in the slave days, the women watched their men get beat. They were raped. They watched their men killed. And when they saw this, they began to react in a negative way. And when they did that, when they say Black women especially talk loudly, so the women would talk loudly and the slave master would think the woman was being disobedient. So then they would get whipped. Now she was dealing with social, and I'm saying social abuse, PTSD, because they're watching their men get attacked. And the slave master is not even sensitive enough to know this woman who had just been raped, watched her husband killed or sold or beat. So now the kids are reacting to the mother's social behavior, PTSD. They didn't get whipped. They didn't get killed. They didn't get taken away. They're with the mother, but they see what the mother is going through. And so they end up in their own mental abuse. So you see how emotional abuse can lead to mental abuse? And we are having these type of relationships every day. I want you to think about that, because it starts at the root. You watch your mother do something, you watch your father do something, you watch your grandparents do something, and you think traditionally that's just the way it should be. I'm going to encourage you today to break the cycle. I'm going to encourage you today to go out on a whim and say, that just might be me, but I care enough about my family to say it stops today. Can I tell you that when I was growing up, I didn't have a great relationship with my mother. And it was because of things that I thought from my past. At 36 years old, I realized what I thought wasn't true. But I created such a dysfunctional and unhealthy relationship with my mother that I had to make up time. And at the age of 36, I apologized to her. I was looking at my family tree and I saw that every good thing that came from me came from my paternal grandmother. But I also found out that the only reason why my paternal grandmother had me was because she took me from my mother. Listen, y'all are probably saying, I don't know how she made it, but I'm going to tell y'all, you can make it as well. And when I realized the truth, I had to apologize to my mom. And when I apologized to her, it saved our relationship. But not only did saving the relationship between the two of us happen, it began to fester into my daughters. It began to fester into my nieces and my nephews. Because once I identified that it was me, I had to go back into my bloodline and start uprooting those things that were not healthy. I had to start uprooting those things that I rooted myself. And then I had to teach my mother about those things. And I had to teach my daughter about those things. Listen, what we say is generationally cursed can be a blessing for future generations if we identify with it. We talked about the emotional abuse leading into the mental abuse. The mental abuse is men or women who have narcissistic behaviors. Narcissistic behaviors are one that accommodates one or the other, male or female. Narcissists aren't just male or female. Male narcissists can be any person, or it's not just one male or one gender or another. It's both. It's both. So if you have or in a relationship where they give only to take away, when they give you praise, it's only to benefit them. When they say certain things to you to make you feel low, bring you up and then make you low again, bring you up and then make you low again. That is what you call mental abuse. You may think you're going crazy. You might ask yourself every day, am I going crazy? Because you don't understand what this narcissist is doing. And some of you may not even realize that narcissists exist. I encourage you to study that for yourself. Narcissistic behavior can be in parents. Narcissistic behaviors can be in siblings. Narcissistic behavior can be in children. And narcissistic behavior can be in relationships. Listen, if you don't hear what I'm saying to you, I'm saying that relationships across the board experience some form of domestic violence. We've been taught that domestic is only husband and wife or wife and husband. But in my past few years, I have learned that domestic violence can be any form of family who has allowed you to feel abused, verbally, mentally, physically, and now socially. There's so many things happening in this earth that we don't take time enough to just debrief, to really just ingest, to really embrace, one, who we are. Because we've taken on so much of this abuse that we start to identify only with the abuse. I'm here to encourage you today. Write it down, make it plain. Habakkuk 2 says to write your vision down and make it plain. What is your way of escape? I was out eating one day and in Savannah, Georgia, I was doing an event and I stopped at a Waffle House and the Lord laid on my heart to write a note to this young lady. And I just wanted to eat my waffles and grits. And the Lord said, write a note to this young lady. And I wrote a note to her. And as I was writing a note, I saw her opening up a window and going out the window. And I don't know her story. I didn't know it at the time, but I wrote this note and I said to her, she's beautiful. I said, you're beautiful. And when I said that she was beautiful in the note, I don't know her reaction until she called me later, but I said, the Lord showed me a window and you climbing out of that window. I don't know what you need to escape from, but what the Lord is saying is it's time for you to break loose. Later on in life, maybe about a week or two after, the young lady found me on Facebook and she said to me that she was actually going through a domestic violence relationship. And because of that note, she did just that. So I want you to identify, are you going through a physical, mental, a verbal, or socially domestic violence relationship? And don't matter, it's not got to be a guy or a girl. It's any part of your relationship, any part of your life. And I want you to look at that that. If you are the abuser, I want you to look at that to make everything around you better. Listen, that's my time, and I pray that this show has blessed you, and we want you to tune in for another episode of The Red Room with your host, Shay Samuels. Mwah.
Celebrating life. We celebrating life, we enjoying ourselves. Positive vibes. Glass in the air, I'm making a toast to the ones close to you that hate you the most. Genocide mind, I'm breaking the code. Streets ain't safe, erasing the code. Code of the street mean prison or death. Little homie strapped, equipped with a vest. Seen dude eyes closed and he died slow. Off the wall like Michael Jackson with the wide nose. Shed too many tears till my eyes swole. Too much to lose, so I gotta stay in grind mode. My eyes open, no blindfold. Out of sight, out of mind, where the time go? Yeah, mama planted seeds in me to shine more. Out of the soil of the inner city I rose. Well beyond the fence when I was looking for something. Now my car go wrong with a push of a button. Got some haters in the city that look at me funny. I don't ignore them, I just pray for them. Now go be great, you got royalty in you. Offspring of a king who's spoiling his children. God's soldiers front line who joining the mission. Salute with both hands as we form position. Pay attention with elders trying to give you some wisdom. The devil come in the form of men, women, and children. Look in the mirror, see the real opposition itself. Trying to break the chains of mental prison and jail. Looking in heaven, feeling like we are living in hell. Blessed and highly favored, but we ain't living it well. Salt on me, slow motion, smooth as a snail. Swimming in salt water, heart big as a whale. Shout out to my convicts that live in the cell. Correctional officers, please stop giving them hell. Do a time, come home now, better person. I'm still DB, just a little better version. Giving knowledge to the youngsters and let them work it. Acting out on the inside, they really hurting. The devil lurking, trying to hinder you from your purpose. Too many clowns around, this is not a circus. That's why I had to change the scenery. Less dirt, a little more greenery. Whoa, feet up on the beach, enjoying the weather. Change your mindset, we can enjoy it together. Work for the most high and bloom forever. When the get tired, still don't get fired. New house, new car, I'm a new man. A new way of thinking, I got a few plans. Don Julio up in my shot glass, yeah. Loud goblins when the stock crash, yeah. About to deal Wall Street, respecting me now. 6 figures with it, I'm more acceptable now. Got people mad cause I'm not available now. Started out in front of me, they trailing me now. Rolling their eyes at me, yet staring me down. Built a kingdom and I ain't sharing my crown. Made my own deals while I'm still independent. On the cruise ship, soon as we finish the business. Come beyond the fence, stop pretending you winning when you're really winning. You grinning from the minute you get it. That's the shift in your paradigm, yeah. Life not a sprint, it's a marathon. Carry your own weight, I carry mine, yeah. Your empire not verified. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. You don't got my back, don't get a spine.
you'll never make that it will be alright. But you're standing here, it will be alright. It will be alright. That it will be alright.
Classic. Classic.
Let's go beyond the fence, it's strictly your character. Some of you really embarrass us. Living right here in America. The public is scared of us and it's not afraid of us. They painted the narrative. We fell for it. Some with the jail for it. Some with the hell for it. Some with the Harvard. Some with the Yale for it. Freedom, I yell for it. And I won't fail going. Me and my 12 cousins, look, we've been dumbed down to the point that we numb now. Let me go a step further. We run around on Instagram. Gotta get thumbs down. Try to impress others. Problem is, you don't invest nothing. Do nothing, you get nothing. Real men protect women. Real men gotta get something. I'm not gonna rent nothing. We tried, it don't fear nothing. We dying, it don't leave nothing. Gotta keep going. T10 gotta keep growing. After we win, we can take 2 shots. It's like we free throwing. We can toast for real. We been on the chill. Can't relax too long no more. Gotta get on for real. Yeah. You expecting a blessing? Let me ask you a question. What do you do with your time? If my message was reckless, you would respect it. Be out of your mind. The blind is leading the blind, falling into a ditch. Yeah. I'm in this king line. That's why I'm beyond the fence. So people will feed you lies, erase your common sense. Giving you hope with no evidence. Slowly taking your confidence. They think we incompetent by the way we treat each other. So rude when we treat each other. Hate thick like peanut butter. When it's fake, I ain't finna trust it. Every race, we need a love one. Ignorance, rise above it. This the invitation to the public. When you're thugging, killing your culture, but you're scared of your oppressors. They supplying the pressures. Why our ancestors dying to tell us. Just tell you a real nigga, look, that's why I can deal with you. Let's make this little picture. Teach your children when they get a little bigger. Let the forefathers was some slave owners, bought they trade on us. They screwing us for a long time. They ran the train on us, putting it fade on us. The rock that laid on us, turning the page on us. Study multiple weaknesses. That's why they prey on us. Make us rely on them. No need to lie on them. We thug up a die, homie. No shucking and jiving. Don't that surprise me. Living a lie, homie. Look, you're bossed and boss up. Opportunities cross us. Yeah, but don't protect each other today. It's really gonna cost us. You said it's the strap, the target is back. You setting us back. Mentally jacked your history, spiritually smashed. On chemistry, that is no whack. The bigotry and the belittling trash. Simply trash the industry. Talking about the whole world. Not just dude and old girl.